It was a day that began like any other. The world woke up to the hum of everyday life. The morning rush, the sound of bustling cities, the click of keyboards, the swish of coffee machines. People went about their routines, unaware that the fate of their world was about to change forever. It began with a single bright light in the sky. At first, most thought it was a comet, a shooting star streaking across the heavens. But as the object grew larger, more distinct, and far too slow, the reality set in. What was once a mere curiosity soon became the subject of global panic. Massive hulking shapes appeared in the sky, far above any commercial airliner's altitude. They seemed to defy all logic and reason. Ships the size of small cities, glinting with strange metallic hues, with designs that were completely alien. They hovered ominously over Earth's capitals and major cities, casting long shadows over the cities below. The hum of engines, unlike any sound the human ear had ever heard, filled the air. A message appeared on every screen, television, smartphone, billboard, simultaneously. It was broadcasted in perfect clarity, and at first it was unintelligible. A strange series of clicks and hums reverberated across the planet. But within moments, the message shifted to a more understandable language, in perfect English. People of Earth, we are the Otheri. We have arrived to offer you guidance and assistance, for your kind is clearly in need of it. Your planet is fragile, your species weak, but you need not fear, for we are here to help you, as servants. The voice of the Otheri was cold and calculating, yet somehow condescending, as if speaking to a child. The screen flickered, showing a looming figure, a leader of sorts, a being whose features were difficult to comprehend. Its face seemed to ripple as though it were an amalgamation of shapes, hard to focus on, like a nightmare brought to life. But one thing was clear: it was not human. Their ships then deployed in all corners of the world. Over New York, London, Beijing, and Moscow, they hovered with an eerie stillness. And in each of these cities, the aliens demanded a show of submission. Buildings shook as they unleashed a single focused beam of energy that tore apart skyscrapers like paper, disintegrating them into nothingness. The message was unmistakable: resist us, and you will face utter annihilation. Humanity's immediate reaction was a mixture of disbelief and fear. Governments scrambled to make sense of the alien presence. Military forces around the globe went into high alert, but they were no match for the Otheri's overwhelming technology. Nations sent their most advanced jets and missiles into the air, but the alien ships simply absorbed the blasts, their energy shields glowing a bright, unsettling blue. Then a laugh echoed from the sky. Zalrith, the leader of the Otheri, appeared again on every screen, his mocking tone sending chills down the spines of every human watching. You fight back with your primitive weapons. How quaint. You have no understanding of what you face. Your efforts are laughable. You are nothing but ants, scrambling in vain beneath the feet of giants. You will learn your place. The humans watched, powerless, as the aliens continued to assert their dominance. But even in the face of this overwhelming power, something stirred in the hearts of people all over the world. A quiet but fierce determination began to form. Humanity had always been underestimated, but if there was one thing the Otheri didn't understand, it was human resilience. The days that followed were filled with chaos, confusion, and a growing sense of helplessness. Governments around the world scrambled to organize a defense, but there was little they could do against the superior technology of the Otheri. Despite their best efforts, humanity was utterly outmatched. Then, just as the world's leaders were beginning to consider surrender, the Otheri made their move. The aliens unleashed their power in a demonstration that sent shockwaves through the planet. In the heart of every major city, they activated their devastating weapons, not to destroy, but to showcase. Their ships shifted, glowing brightly as a hum filled the air. In an instant, the ground beneath New York's towering skyscrapers began to crack open, sending tremors through the city. The Otheri leader's voice boomed across every screen again, his tone dripping with contempt. Observe, Earthlings, this is the power you face. Watch as we demonstrate the might of the Otheri, for you will soon understand that resistance is futile. The Otheri began with something simple, an energy pulse. It started as a ripple across the sky, then expanded, radiating outward. Buildings, massive, proud symbols of human achievement, wilted like flowers in a drought. One by one, the towers of New York collapsed under the intense gravitational pressure from the pulse. They crumbled like sandcastles, falling inward into a cloud of dust. No sound escaped, no explosion, no scream, just the eerie silence of devastation. Then, with a wave of their hands, the Otheri demonstrated another ability, molecular manipulation. In Paris, an entire block was reduced to a fine powder in a matter of seconds. With a simple gesture, the alien leader turned a city street into nothing more than vapor. The destruction wasn't explosive, it wasn't violent. It was precise and absolute, like a deathly calm. All around the world, the alien fleets hovered, each ship capable of devastating entire countries. There was no force on Earth that could even touch them. Missiles launched by the world's finest military powers were swatted aside with little more than a flicker from the Otheri's energy shields. Fighter jets were torn from the sky, their pilots helpless in the face of alien technology. Earth's greatest defenses were little more than toys in comparison. The Otheri were not just showing their power, they were making the statement. They were sending a message, loud and clear. You have no future here. You are weak, insignificant. Submit, or face complete and utter destruction. As the world watched the horrors unfold, an air of resignation began to settle in. People prayed, governments debated, and the strongest among them argued for a path of peace. After all, what could they possibly do against this kind of force? It was clear now. Humanity was not just facing an invasion, they were facing extinction. But amidst the devastation, something strange began to happen. There was a subtle shift, a ripple of change across the globe. In the midst of this overwhelming display of force, the words of General Elena Carter, the leader who had spoken out in defiance before, echoed in the minds of millions. She had said, "You're wrong. You may have power, but you've never faced us." It was a simple phrase, but it lit a fire in the hearts of ordinary men and women all over the planet. The Otheri had underestimated humanity's greatest strength, its heart. The aliens believed their technology made them invincible, but they couldn't understand the power of human will. Across the globe, resistance began to form. It wasn't much yet, just small pockets of defiance, but humanity had learned one thing. They weren't just going to roll over and die. There was more to humanity than technology and weapons. There was something deeper, something that could not be crushed by alien might. And the Otheri, too confident in their superiority, had no idea what they had awakened. Humanity had barely caught its breath after the alien showcase of power. The world was left reeling from the devastation, cities reduced to rubble, and entire countries teetering on the brink of collapse. People feared the worst, that they were mere moments away from complete annihilation. But in the quiet corners of the world, something else was happening, something the Otheri hadn't counted on. In secret underground labs, government bunkers, and abandoned military bases, scientists and engineers had been working for years on projects no one outside their circles had known about. These weren't just human innovations, they were ancient ones, discovered through cryptic texts, hidden relics, and long-forgotten technologies buried beneath the earth. Humanity's true strength wasn't in the guns and missiles that had failed so miserably against the Otheri's power. It was something far more subtle, far more dangerous. In the darkest recesses of these labs, humanity's best minds were piecing together the clues left behind by their ancient ancestors. These ancestors had known things, secrets of energy, of materials that could bend the laws of nature itself. And it wasn't just advanced technology they had uncovered. It was knowledge that had been lost over millennia, waiting for the right moment to be rediscovered. Dr. Ethan Carrick, a physicist and one of the leading minds on this secret project, was the first to put it all together. He had studied an ancient artifact that had baffled scholars for years, a small, seemingly insignificant cube found deep beneath the Siberian ice. When opened, it revealed intricate patterns and symbols, none of which made sense to modern science. But as he connected the dots between ancient myths, hidden texts, and modern particle physics, he realized they had uncovered a form of energy that was capable of manipulating the very fabric of reality itself, a new, infinite energy source that no alien technology had ever encountered. Humanity had discovered vortex energy. It wasn't just a new power, it was a game changer. This energy, drawn from a natural resonance found deep within the Earth's core, could be used to fuel weapons, shields, and even spacecraft far beyond anything Earth had ever known. But more importantly, it had the potential to disrupt the very systems that the Otheri had taken for granted. Their shields, their molecular manipulation, their hyperspeed ships, none of it would be immune to the effects of vortex energy. General Elena Carter, still rallying humanity's forces in the wake of the Otheri's brutal assault, was briefed on the discovery. She was skeptical at first. After all, every previous attempt to fight back had failed. But as the scientists demonstrated the power of the new energy by disabling a small Otheri warship that had been captured in the Pacific, her skepticism melted away. The Otheri had not been the only ones capable of learning and adapting. Humanity had spent decades preparing, quietly gathering knowledge from sources the invaders never considered. Now that knowledge was humanity's greatest weapon. In a top-secret meeting, Carter issued the order. It's time to fight back. We show them we're not just a colony to be wiped away. We're Earth, and we don't give up. Across the globe, military forces were quickly equipped with weapons powered by vortex energy cannons that could tear apart alien ships, shields that could absorb and deflect their most powerful blasts, and jet fighters equipped with propulsion systems that could outpace anything the Otheri had ever seen. But it wasn't just weapons that were developed. Humans had figured out how to reverse engineer the Otheri's own technology, integrating their vortex-powered devices into the very ships the aliens had used to invade Earth. The tide was about to shift. What had begun as a planet cowering in fear was now preparing for its first real counterattack. And as the Otheri continued to monitor Earth from above, they were utterly unaware that their worst nightmare was already unfolding beneath their feet. Humans had not only survived, they had adapted. And they were about to show the Otheri just how far humanity's ingenuity could take them. The Otheri had long assumed that humanity was too weak to mount any serious resistance. For weeks, they had methodically crushed every attempt to fight back. But just as the aliens prepared to wipe out the last remnants of human defiance, something unexpected happened. Humanity fought back, harder than they could have imagined. The first sign of real change came when the world's major military forces, coordinated by General Elena Carter's command, launched a surprise counteroffensive. Equipped with newly developed weapons powered by vortex energy, the humans struck the Otheri where they least expected it, on the battlefield. The world watched in disbelief as a squadron of fighter jets, outfitted with advanced propulsion systems, tore through an Otheri supply convoy in the outskirts of Tokyo. The jets were faster, more agile, and far more lethal than any the Otheri had encountered before. A single well-placed shot from one of the energy cannons sent an Otheri warship spiraling out of control, its shield cracking under the concentrated beam. It wasn't just a hit, it was a statement. Zalrith, the Otheri leader, watched the broadcast in his command center on the alien mothership. His eyes narrowed, a deep frown appearing on his alien face. Impossible, he muttered to himself. How could they have adapted so quickly? The Otheri had never faced anything like this before. Their technology, which had been invincible for centuries, was now being breached by a primitive species they had expected to crush within days. The military victory was only the beginning. As human forces regrouped, they began to hit Otheri positions in waves. Small but highly effective strikes that left the aliens scrambling. The Otheri had underestimated humanity's ability to adapt, to learn on the fly, and now they were paying the price. But the real shocker came when Earth's scientists, working with military engineers, revealed a breakthrough. The first fully functional anti-gravity device, a technology they had salvaged from the wreckage of Otheri ships. They had harnessed a natural phenomenon that not only allowed them to reverse the gravitational pull on any object, but also provided an unexpected advantage: flight technology that rivaled the Otheri's own spacecraft. A fleet of human warships, now equipped with anti-gravity systems and powered by vortex energy, launched a surprise attack on an Otheri flagship in orbit. They arrived without warning, descending into the alien vessel's defenses before the Otheri could react. The humans hit them hard, using the element of surprise to cripple the flagship's main reactor. The ship, which had once been a symbol of the Otheri's unassailable might, was now in flames, its shield systems overloaded and failing. The victory was swift and decisive, though not without cost. Hundreds of human lives were lost in the attack. But the message was clear: humanity was no longer the defenseless species the Otheri had believed them to be. As the flagship plunged toward Earth's atmosphere, burning up in a spectacular fireball, a cheer erupted from the resistance forces on the ground. Humanity had just claimed its first victory against an enemy who had once laughed at their power. It was a victory of ingenuity, perseverance, and spirit, three qualities the Otheri had never anticipated. Across the world, the people of Earth saw the impossible. Humans had not only survived, they were winning. In a broadcast that would be heard around the globe, General Elena Carter appeared on screen, her face a mix of pride and resolve. "This is just the beginning," she said. "We will not stop until we've taken back our world. We will show them that humanity does not kneel. We will fight until the last of them leaves our skies." As the camera panned across a group of soldiers preparing for the next battle, the words of Carter rang out in the hearts of every person who had been watching. The Otheri had made the fatal mistake of underestimating humanity, and now they would see the full force of human resilience. The Otheri had always been confident in their superiority. For centuries, they had conquered entire star systems, leaving destruction in their wake. Yet, in the span of mere weeks, humanity had done what no other species in the galaxy had managed to do. They had fought back. The aliens had underestimated the resilience and ingenuity of Earth's inhabitants, and now they were paying the price. The victory over the Otheri flagship had sent shockwaves through both human and alien ranks. On Earth, celebrations erupted across every corner of the globe. People who had lived in fear for so long now dared to dream again. Hope surged like a tidal wave, fueling resistance groups and rallying the world's militaries to redouble their efforts. But for the Otheri, this was no cause for celebration. Zalrith, the alien commander, stared at the burning wreckage of their flagship as it spiraled into the atmosphere. He could feel the pulse of anger and frustration deep within him. This was not how it was supposed to be. They cannot be allowed to succeed. Earth must fall. The galaxy is mine to command. His thoughts were dark and heavy, but they steeled his resolve. The Otheri had underestimated humanity once. Now, they would not make the same mistake again. In the heart of the Otheri fleet, high above the earth, the leader convened a council of his most trusted generals and strategists. They discussed their failures, and Zalrith's anger was palpable. The humans had proven themselves unpredictable and resourceful, defying every expectation. They had developed technologies that were making even the Otheri nervous. But Zalrith had a plan, one that would not only crush humanity's newfound hope, but would extinguish their will to fight forever. The Otheri counterstrike. The Otheri had never relied on brute force alone. They preferred to strike at the heart of a species' resolve. If they couldn't destroy humanity's military, then they would target something even more precious: the world's unity. The Otheri's counterstrike began with a single, chilling act. They unleashed a wave of biological warfare. A series of engineered pathogens scattered across major cities around the globe. Within hours, entire populations began to show symptoms: fevers, nausea, uncontrollable coughs, diseases that weakened even the strongest of humans. The Othari had done their research, exploiting human vulnerability. Panic spread faster than the virus itself. Hospitals became overwhelmed with the sick and dying. Governments were paralyzed, as resources meant for defense were now funneled into medical aid and quarantine efforts. The Othari had struck humanity where it hurt most, not in its military might, but in its people. The disease was engineered to be nearly impossible to treat, with humanity's own medical advances providing no immediate solution. The aliens knew that in a weakened state, Earth would be easier to conquer. But what the Othari did not count on was humanity's resolve. The spark of defiance. As the virus spread and cities descended into chaos, General Elena Carter and the resistance forces made a critical decision. They would not let Earth's people crumble under the weight of fear. They would not let the Othari win by dividing humanity. Carter's voice echoed through every broadcast station, every news outlet, and even the emergency frequencies. She spoke not just to the leaders of the world, but to every single person who had once thought themselves powerless. The Othari have struck us with a virus, a plague. They think we will surrender, but they don't understand us. We are more than just a military force. We are humanity. We don't stop. We don't fall. We don't give in. The resistance fighters, scientists, doctors, and civilians who had already united for the cause began working tirelessly, not just to fight the disease, but to cure it. Earth's brightest minds, many of them working under pressure, began to develop an antidote using the very principles they had discovered through the Othari's technology. It was slow at first, but as each breakthrough was made, hope spread faster than the virus. While the Othari believed they had found a way to break humanity, they had missed one crucial fact. Humans always rise, always fight back, no matter the odds. The Othari's biological weapon had swept across Earth like a tidal wave, devastating cities and causing widespread panic. What had begun as a military struggle had transformed into a race against time to save humanity from the very brink of extinction. People were sick, and nations were divided. Yet, in the midst of all this chaos, there was a sense of unity, an undeniable force that began to pulse through humanity like an electric current. The world was sick, yes, but it wasn't defeated. General Elena Carter's voice, once a symbol of resistance, had now become the rallying cry of an entire species. The Othari had thought they could break humanity's spirit with a virus. They had underestimated just how deeply the will to survive ran within the heart of humankind. Days had passed since the first signs of the outbreak, but the resistance, with help from the world's leading scientists, had begun to find answers. The cure for the virus wasn't easy to come by, but every breakthrough was a victory. From the underground laboratories to the makeshift hospitals in every corner of the globe, humanity's brightest minds worked tirelessly. People weren't just waiting to be saved, they were fighting back with everything they had. Across the world, small groups of doctors, researchers, and engineers collaborated, using every resource available to manufacture the antidote. Supplies were scarce, but their resolve wasn't. The resistance fighters, once focused solely on weapons and military tactics, now focused on distributing the cure and saving lives. Every drop of the antidote was precious, and every person who recovered became a beacon of hope for others still fighting the sickness. It was during this time that the resistance discovered a critical flaw in the Othari's biological weapon. It wasn't as perfect as they had hoped. The virus, while deadly, wasn't designed to spread indefinitely. It had a limited window. Once humans began to produce the antibodies needed to fight it, they could develop resistance. And that's exactly what happened. The first signs of resistance came from small, isolated pockets of human survivors who, after receiving the cure, began to show natural immunity. They became a living testament to humanity's ability to adapt. Word of the cure spread quickly. Governments, once fragmented by panic, began to unite, pooling resources and coordinating efforts to save the people who remained. Every nation, every city, Every community was engaged in the fight, fueled not just by the desire to survive, but by a shared determination that their world would not fall to the Otheri. They would not be erased. The Otheri, though powerful, had made a critical mistake in their calculations. They had underestimated humanity's resourcefulness, its unwavering determination, and the primal instinct to survive. They had thought that by attacking humanity at its weakest, its people, they could break the will of the planet. But now, as the cure spread and the first signs of recovery began to emerge, they realized the true depth of their error. Zalrith, the Otheri commander, watched from his mothership, his alien face twisted in a mixture of disbelief and rage. The virus, his ultimate weapon, was now losing its potency. The humans had turned the tide. This cannot be happening, Zalrith seethed. We were supposed to break them. But the Otheri had misjudged humanity in more ways than one. The human spirit, which had been battered by bombings, disease, and death, was now stronger than ever. Where the Otheri had expected fear and despair, they found resistance and defiance. The cure was more than just a treatment. It was a symbol of humanity's refusal to submit, no matter how dire the situation. As Earth's people began to recover and rebuild, a new era of resistance was born. The Otheri, once confident that they could simply wipe out humanity, were now facing an enemy that had not only survived, but was more determined to fight than ever before. The world had changed in ways no one could have predicted. After the Otheri's biological weapon had begun to lose its effectiveness, humanity had seized the opportunity to fight back with a newfound ferocity. The cure for the virus spread like wildfire, and those who had once felt powerless were now standing tall, united by their shared survival. The resistance had moved from scattered groups of survivors to a full-scale, worldwide effort to push the Otheri off Earth once and for all. In every corner of the globe, human resolve was hardening. People were no longer just hiding. They were fighting. While the Otheri had expected humanity to collapse, they had instead ignited a blaze of defiance that now burned hotter than ever. Humanity's military, now bolstered by vortex-powered weapons and advanced anti-gravity ships, began launching coordinated strikes against Otheri strongholds. What had once been considered impossible was now happening in real time. Otheri ships were being taken down, one by one. Cities that had once fallen to the aliens' devastating strikes now found themselves liberated. Humanity had turned the tide. But the Otheri were not unprepared for failure. They were a species that had conquered the stars for millennia, and their pride was as vast as their empire. Zalrith, enraged by the string of defeats, knew that it was time for a final push. His strategy would be ruthless. If the Otheri couldn't defeat humanity with biological warfare or overwhelming military might, they would crush the Earth's spirit with sheer devastation. In the heart of the Otheri fleet, Zalrith convened a secret meeting with his highest-ranking generals. His orders were swift and uncompromising. We will burn their cities. We will scorch the earth itself. We will remind them that they are nothing more than insects to us. The Otheri had a weapon far more devastating than any they had used before, a planetary obliterator. A weapon capable of targeting the very core of a planet, triggering catastrophic seismic activity that would cause continents to split and oceans to rise, rendering Earth uninhabitable. It was a weapon so powerful that even the Otheri had hesitated to deploy it. Until now. Zalrith, in his fury, believed that only by destroying everything humanity held dear could he bring the planet to its knees. The final countdown. The Otheri began their assault on Earth's surface, not in the traditional sense, but with a more subtle approach. They targeted the planet's core, sending a series of blasts deep into the Earth's mantle. With each strike, the planet trembled. Cities shook as massive fissures began to open, swallowing buildings and whole neighborhoods. The ground beneath the resistance fighters' feet began to crack as tremors ripped through the land. It wasn't just an attack. It was an execution. But despite the tremors and the destruction, humanity refused to bend. The resistance fighters, now fully united, mounted their most desperate assault yet. General Elena Carter knew the stakes had never been higher. With the Otheri intent on making Earth a barren wasteland, they had no choice but to take the fight directly to the alien mothership. The clock was ticking, and if they failed, Earth would be lost. The Global Alliance mobilized their forces for a final offensive. The humans had learned to adapt to the Otheri's tactics, and now, with their advanced weapons and the strength of their unity, they were prepared to strike back harder than ever before. A coordinated strike force, comprising human soldiers, engineers, and scientists, began the arduous journey into space, targeting the Otheri mothership itself. This would be humanity's last chance to destroy the Otheri's weapon before it obliterated the planet. Elena Carter stood at the helm of the lead ship, her face set with determination. She looked out at the sea of human ships that had gathered for this final mission. "This is it," she said, her voice steady, her gaze unwavering. "We fight for Earth. We fight for every single life, for every family, every soul that's still holding on. We won't let them take our home." The Resistance fleet, united in their resolve, surged toward the Otheri flagship, now surrounded by an impenetrable force field that protected their deadly weapon. It was a dangerous, last-ditch effort, but humanity had no other option. They would either destroy the Otheri and save their planet, or they would fall fighting for the chance to keep their world. As the fleet closed in on their target, the planet below trembled with the weight of the Otheri's assault, but the fires of resistance burned brighter than ever. Humanity had already fought the unthinkable, and now they would face their greatest challenge yet. The Earth trembled beneath the Otheri's assault. Cities crumbled as the Otheri's planetary weapon fired again and again into the core of the planet. The landscape shifted, oceans surged, and mountains split. Humanity had never faced such peril, yet in the face of their extinction, they refused to surrender. They were human, and they would not die quietly. General Elena Carter's voice crackled over the communication systems, her words carrying through the ranks of the resistance. "We have one chance to make sure Earth survives. We take the fight to their mothership. This is it. We give everything." The resistance fleet, now fully assembled and united under a single banner, surged forward into the cold vacuum of space, heading toward the Otheri mothership, which loomed like a dark monolith in the distance. The ship's shields were impenetrable, its weapons capable of annihilating any who came close. But humanity was not backing down. They had discovered weaknesses in the alien technology. The vortex energy that had empowered their weapons gave them an edge, one they intended to use to the fullest. As the fleet approached, the Otheri forces opened fire, attempting to prevent the human ships from reaching the mothership. The battle was fierce, with ships dodging blasts and retaliating with everything they had. Human fighters darted through the chaos, their new anti-gravity propulsion systems giving them the maneuverability needed to evade the Otheri's deadly lasers. Inside the lead ship, Carter stood at the command center, her hand gripping the console as the ship rocked from the force of an explosion. "Brace for impact. We break through, no matter what," Carter shouted, her voice fierce with determination. The crew responded with synchronized precision, activating their vortex-powered weapons to target the mothership's shields. The energy beams struck like thunderbolts, hitting the shields at the right frequencies to destabilize them. For the first time in weeks, the Otheri's confidence wavered. They had underestimated humanity's ingenuity, and now the tables were turning. The human ships pressed forward, tearing through the alien defenses, until at last, Carter's flagship reached the heart of the Otheri fleet. There, at the center of it all, was the planetary obliterator, its power source glowing menacingly as it prepared for another devastating blast. But Carter knew that if they didn't destroy it now, Earth would be lost forever. "This is it," Carter said, her voice quiet but resolute. She turned to her team. "We make this count." In a final desperate maneuver, the flagship launched a series of torpedoes directly at the planetary obliterator's core. The torpedoes, infused with vortex energy, pierced the alien shield and detonated, sending a massive shockwave through the mothership. The explosion shook the fabric of space itself, but the human fleet did not stop. They pushed through the chaos, targeting the Utherese core reactors, the very heart of their power. "It's working," one of the engineers shouted, monitoring the data. "Their systems are failing." With one final devastating blow, the Othere mothership began to collapse in on itself. The shields flickered and then failed, leaving the ship exposed. The explosion that followed was magnificent, a fiery eruption of energy that consumed the mothership in an instant, sending shockwaves across the galaxy. The Othere had underestimated humanity once again. They had come to Earth expecting an easy conquest, but instead they found a species that would not be wiped out without a fight. As the dust settled and the last remnants of the Othere fleet were scattered across space, the resistance ships began to return to Earth, their mission complete. The battle had been won, but the cost had been high. Thousands of lives had been lost, and the planet was scared by the alien invasion. But humanity had survived, and that survival was a testament to their strength, ingenuity, and unbreakable spirit. On Earth, the survivors began to rebuild, starting from the ashes of what the Othere had left behind. The cure had been distributed, and the virus had been eradicated. The planet, though damaged, was not lost. The people who had been brought to the brink of destruction now stood on the precipice of a new era. General Carter addressed the world one final time, her voice filled with hope and defiance. "We have shown them our true power. This is our home, and we will protect it. We will rebuild, we will rise, and we will never bow to anyone again." Humanity had not only survived an alien invasion, they had proven to the universe that Earth would never be conquered. The story of their defiance would echo through the stars for generations to come. And as Earth slowly healed, the universe would remember one simple truth: never underestimate humanity.